Guys, this is Dan with Syntax, and today we're going to go over the Actions class, what it is and how we can use it. So again, as I always mention, please watch previous videos. We do build upon the next, so to make what we're currently watching a little bit easier to understand and put into practice. So Actions class, what is it? Well, quite simply put, we can use the Actions class to mimic mouse functions or keyboard functions. Now, why would we might do this? Well, a lot of times what might happen is there is such thing called submenu items. And submenu items might be, let me go to here, a little website that I have pulled up. All right. So we have let's say maybe that this, for some reason, this link wouldn't be accessible unless my mouse was over it. And you see here it kind of hovers over, right, and it detects that there's a hover event. But for some reason, let's just say that this link would not have been clickable unless there was a cursor or mouse hovering over it, right? Those are kind of submenu items, right? So it needs to sense a mouse kind of over action in order to make these elements accessible. Okay, now how do we again mimic those actions? Like I said, we can use the actions class. So let me go ahead and go over here. So again, as I mentioned, actions class can mimic mouse movements and actions, and as well as key actions. And how we use it is we'll call it here, right, our actions class. We say actions and we give it a name. Again, proper naming convention. It's always a industry standard to go ahead and just name it action or maybe act or something along those lines. And we have equals new actions, and we go ahead and put our driver here as our argument. Now, I have a little thing here that I have coded out, and I'll get to that in a moment. But I just want to show you that now once we go ahead and we have our actions class here, and we have to import it, right? So we can either, I'll show you it here. We could either click over here or hover over actions and choose import, or we could do Control Shift O, or for Mac users, Command Shift O to import all of our classes that we need to import, right? All of our classes or interfaces. So, actions. Now that I've went ahead and made an instance here of my actions class, I can now use it. So I can say action, which is what I named it, dot, and I can call these methods, right? So you can go down here and there is a plethora of different options here, and they all make really sense. It's pretty self-explanatory and kind of straight into the point, right? We have a click or a click and hold. So maybe I clicked and hold onto a web element, right? Let's see here. We have context click. If you're not familiar with context click, that's just simply a right click. That's all. Now we have double click. We have drag and drop, which I'll get to in a moment. You can see here there's key up and key down. What might that mean? Well, key up and key down is just simply that. Let's say I wanted to hold down the, let's say, control button. Well, that's simply, I would use actions dot, and then I can do here, we could do key down, and we can do a char sequence, right? And you could choose a web element too that you want to target, and then the char sequence is kind of whatever you want to do. I could do that, and then I can maybe do something like keys dot, and then I can do maybe, let's say, control, something like that. Then we could do dot perform, right? So it would hold down the control key for me, okay? Now if I wanted to release that, I can then go ahead and do key up. So it's very much the same deal, except for it is just simply key up instead of key down, right? So you kind of get the idea there. Pretty self-explanatory. And you guys can go ahead and play through this and take a look and experiment with all the different methods here. Now, I did want to teach you how to properly use the drag and drop or other ways to drag and drop web elements. And there's 3 different ways we can do so, and I've coded them here for us, right, to save some time. But I will just go ahead and talk you through that. So what would I mean by drag and drop? Quite simply that. I click an element and I drag it over to a target location, and then I go ahead and just drop it in there, right? So I can take that out and put it back up here, right? So that is that, right? Here we go. Then I can just go ahead and refresh the page. So this is drop here, right? So now how do I do that with my actions class? Well, there's really two different ways of doing it, but there is, for one way, there is two ways of writing it, and I'll go over that in a second, okay? So as you can imagine, the one way is to simply recreate with a different methods to enact what I just did. So I am taking my cursor, I am going and moving over to the element here. I am clicking, right? I'm clicking and holding it, my click down, right? So my click is being held, I'm holding the element. And then once I now have a hold of the element, I'm gonna move all the way over to my target area. And then once I'm over the target area, I will then let go or release my finger off the mouse to drop it in there, right? So that is what we need to do really in those steps to recreate that as well, right? So we have over here, I have action, click, and hold, right? So it goes to my web element that I want to drag, and I stored them here as my drag and drop, which would be, this is my drag, right? My dragging element, and that's my drop area, okay? So I named it drag and drop here, just to give you guys some context here, right? So I went over to my drag element, right? I clicked and held, and then while I'm holding, I went and moved my mouse, this is a mouse action, over to the drop area. And then once I went to drop area and I was hovering over, right, I moved to that element, then I went ahead and released. And you can see here that I had perform at the end of each one. It's a good habit to go ahead and use so. Now that's one way of writing it. Now the second way of writing it is to do it all in a chain here. Okay, so what I've done is I have click and hold, then dot move, right? So click and hold, then dot move to element, same thing here, then dot release, there we go, and then I have dot build. Why I have dot build here is when we chain a bunch of these methods together, we need to use the dot build method, and it goes ahead and it compiles all these and builds them to one method here on demand, right? On dynamically it'll run, and then always will end with dot perform. It's always the safe bet to do. Now my second way of doing it, all right, the second way of doing it is to use a drag and drop method, and all I need to do is when I say action dot, you'll see here we have two different drag and drops. We have one drag and drop where we have our web element source, which is our drag, the element that we want to move, and our target area, right, which is our drop. I'm going to use that one. But you can see another one here that says web element source and then int x offset or int x y offset. And what this is doing is taking the web element, my drag element, and instead of putting a target area as in a form of a web element, I can go ahead and use a method called get location, which will give me a printout of the x and y axis locations, right? A little bit kind of like a quadratic formula in math class, right? But that's one other way. It's a little more advanced, and we may not ever need to use so, but I just kind of want to mention it here. And like I said, if you wanted to find out your X and Y location, pretty simply, if I wanted to, let's say it was my drop, right, my location, again, all I would have to do is drop dot get, and then you can see here location. And then I can go ahead and print that out, put it in a printout line, and it should give me an X and Y coordinate here, which I can pop into that method, right, if I wanted to go that route. But as I have here, I went with the web element to web element route. And then I have here dot perform, right? So simply drag and drop is combining all of these methods together in one, and then simply just dot perform. Okay, so What I'm going to do is I'm going to comment these out here, and then we're going to go ahead and run so you can see that happen in real time. Okay, let's go ahead and run. And there we go. You saw it went ahead and dragged over into that area. Well, guys, that is actions class. Again, it is to mimic mouse or keyboard actions as I just went over. And you guys now know why you might need to do so because of submenu items where they will only interact once they feel a hover over or a mouse action on the page, right? Now those web elements would be accessible to you, okay? Now that is how we go ahead and call our actions class. And you did see that there is many different action methods, and I want you guys to kind of take a look at them and kind of experiment. And here within the title of the methods, like I said, they are very self-explanatory. And for the one that was a little bit tricky, I showed you the drag and drop and 3 different ways that we can go about it. And that's all, guys. All right, so go ahead and practice, pause, rewind, do what you guys need to do, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, have a good one.